And welcome this morning to Easy Bible Study. I am Kimberly Mann, and if you don't recognize that performance, then you have got to go see Fiddler on the Roof, either in person or you can just get it on Amazon Prime. I believe it's free. So definitely you need to be watching this, and definitely you need to be part of this. So Fruma Sarah, we're going to talk today about saying goodbye to the OG Fruma Sarah. And if you don't know who Fruma Sarah is, well, that's really sad. But today we are in Genesis chapter 23, I believe it is. Yep, we are in Genesis chapter 23, and we are saying goodbye to Sarah. So I'll be right back in just a moment. We have been having some technical difficulties this morning, so give me just a second, and we'll see if we can get this fixed. Here we go. Be right back in just a second.
You can have all this world. Give me Jesus.
And if you do find value in this content today, I'd be not surprised if you find value in the content, but I would be surprised if you find value in the production quality today. But definitely do me a favor, click like, subscribe, turn on that notification bell so you don't miss any of my content. And today we are in a very special passage. I wanted to play that little bit of Fiddler on the Roof for you because a lot of people don't know. And there's some things about it that I wanted to tell you, and we're going to talk about that today. But let's first get into the passage. And if you do find any value in this, then absolutely do me a favor and click like, subscribe, turn on that notification bell so you don't miss any of my content coming up. So let's get into the passage. Let's do that, and then we will get into discussing this today. All right, let's go. And Sarah was 120 and 70, and Sarah was 107 and 20 years old. 127. These were the years of the life of Sarah. And Sarah died in Kirja Arba, the same as Hebron in the land of Canaan. And Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. And Abraham stood up from before his dead and spake unto the sons of Heth, saying, I am a stranger and a sojourner with you. Give me a possession of a burying place with you, that I may bury my dead out of my sight. And the children of Heth answered Abraham, saying unto him, Hear us, my lord, thou art a mighty prince among us. In the choice of our sepulchres bury thy dead. None of us shall withhold from thee his sepulchre, but that thou mayest bury thy dead. And Abraham stood up and bowed himself to the people of the land, even to the children of Heth. And he communed with them, saying, If it be your mind that I should bury my dead out of my sight, hear me and entreat me for to Ephron the son of Zohar, that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which he hath, which is in the end of his field. For as much money as is worth, he shall give it me for a possession of a burying place amongst you. And Ephron dwelt among the children of Heth, and Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the audience of the children of Heth, even of all that went in at the gate of his city, saying, Nay, my lord, hear me. The field give I thee, and the cave that is therein I give it thee. In the presence of the sons of my people give I it thee. Bury thy dead. And Abraham bowed himself down before the people of the land. And he spake unto Ephron in the audience of the people of the land, saying, But if thou wilt give it, I pray thee, hear me. I will give thee money for the field. Take it of me, I will bury my dead there. And Ephron answered Abraham, saying unto him, My lord, hearken unto me. The land is worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that betwixt me and thee? Bury therefore thy dead. And Abraham hearkened unto Ephron, and Abraham weighed to Ephron the silver, which he had named in the audience of the sons of Heth, 400 shekels of silver, current money with the merchant. And the field of Ephron, which was in Machpelah, which was before Mamre, the field and the cave which was therein, and all the trees that were in the field that were in all the borders round about were made sure unto Abraham for a possession in the presence of the children of Heth, before all that went in at the gate of his city. And after this, Abraham buried Sarah his wife in the cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre. The same is Hebron in the land of Canaan. And the field and the cave that is therein were made sure unto Abraham for a possession of a burying place by the sons of Heth. All right. So this is our passage for today. And this may seem like maybe you just don't feel like, okay, what's the big deal? So Sarah's dying and, okay, Sarah has died. Let's see here. And sorry, my video just started playing here in the background, and that's not cool. We're going to close that down so that I don't hear that. All right. So if we look at this passage here, we see that Abraham is obviously grieving. And Sarah died. She was 127 years old when she died. So this puts her son Isaac at 37 years old, because remember, she was 90 when he was born. And so we're going to start here in the first part, in chapter 23. We did all of Genesis 23 today because there's not a whole lot that we have to cover here as far as like verse by verse. But the significant things are, of course, verse 1, where it says, verse 1 and 2, Sarah dies at the age of 127. All right. Now, why did I play Rectevia's Fruma Sarah? So I looked it up because what does the word Fruma Sarah mean? I was like, when I thought of Sarah and the fact that she was dying, I thought of Fruma Sarah because in Fiddler on the Roof, Fruma Sarah is the dead wife of one of the characters, and of the butcher, and it's like, okay, so she's passed on. But I looked up what Fruma Sarah means, and actually the word frum, or fruma in this case, because it's the Yiddish version of a word, this Yiddish version of Fruma Sarah is actually, interestingly enough, this is actually when the word frum or fruma in this case actually means godly and devout Jew. And when I found that out, I was like, wow, because in Fiddler on the Roof, Fruma Sarah is not portrayed. She's portrayed kind of like a ghost and almost like something wicked. Although, if you listen carefully to her song, when she says this, she's like, I was a godly woman. I was a wonderful woman. How can you have your very young daughter take my place and dispose me in my house and dispossess me of all my things and disrespect me? And it's like, it was almost like it was being, of course, this is a made up dream. Fruma Sarah never came. It says you have to watch the movie, trust me, or go watch the play. But what's really interesting is that actually the term, even though Fiddler on the Roof, you would think Fruma Sarah, calling her Fruma Sarah is almost like it's a bad thing. And it's kind of become that way in our culture. When I actually looked up what it actually means godly and devout Jewish woman. And the original, the OG godly and devout Jewish woman by the name of Sarah was Abraham's wife, Sarah, or originally Sarai. And that's how we know she was the OG, because her name was changed from Sarai to Sarah. And then she begat her son, Isaac, through Abraham. So in Genesis 23 here, first of all, we learn that Sarah has died. And then in verses, so what we find out here is that, just kind of as a little bit of trivia almost, so the word fruma or frum is Yiddish for godly, devout, Jewish woman. All right. So now if we're looking at verses 3 to, let's see here. Verses 3 through 5, Abraham goes to the leaders of Hebron and asks for a place to bury his dead. And in verse 6, he's like, look, I'm a stranger here. This isn't where I'm from. I'd like permission. And in verse 6, actually that's verses 3 and 4. Sorry. Verse 3 and 4 is where he asks. And verses 5 through, let's see here. Verses 5 and 6, they recognize the wealth and significance of Abraham and say, yes, we'll give you a place to bury him. And so then Abraham goes in verse 7 through, let's see here, and communed with them. So let's see here. 7 through 9. He asks for a specific cave in Hebron called Machpelah. All right. Now they sometimes refer to it as Machpelah. All right. So he asked for a specific cave called Machpelah, owned by Ephron, who is a Hittite, by the way. Ephron is a Hittite. Good morning, fly fishing for families. So Ephron is actually a Hittite, and the Hittites were, they actually go throughout, their history correlates with the nation of Israel. So you'll see that as we go along through this. But Ephron, he dwelt among the children of Heth, and Ephron the Hittite, and the men of Heth are actually Hittites, but it just specifically says about him that he is a Hittite. So he answers him, verses 9 through 11. Ephron says, yes. He says, yes, I'm going to give it to you. Don't worry about it. We're good. He's like, I'm going to give it to you. And Abraham then in verses 12 through 13 insists on paying for it. So Abraham insists on paying him. And so it's kind of like they're negotiating here. And in verses 14 through 15, Ephron states the value of the land as 400 shekels of silver. Now, I did not a bit of digging, I just did a little Google search basically. And according to Google, I'm going to read you what it says. I put in, what is the current cost of 400 shekels of silver from Abraham's time? And it kind of rewrote it for me. What is the cost of 400 shekels of silver from Abraham's time? Assuming the half ounce, which is what they thought a shekel would be, 400 shekels would be 200 ounces of silver. Silver currently trades for $25 an ounce. So that's about $5,000. Okay? So 400 shekels of silver, I mean, it's decent, but honestly, that's not really, it wasn't super cheap, but quite frankly, that's actually not too far off if you're looking for a burial ground. So the 400 shekels of silver equals, in our modern equivalent, about $5,000. So he says, and honestly, Ephron even is saying, we don't know if he's actually negotiating or if he's just stating, hey, this is what it's worth, but honestly, what is 400 shekels between you and me? I mean, which indicates that Abraham and Ephron had probably done business many times before, and that in Ephron's mind, $5,000 was nothing. Like, if you're talking about super wealthy men, like who are millionaires, and very definitely Abraham would have been a millionaire of his time, possibly even a billionaire, based on what we know about how many cattle and people and how many people he sustained and employed, etc., from various other passages. So absolutely, definitely a millionaire. What's $5,000 to a millionaire? He's like, what's that between us? We do all sorts of business together all the time. But Abraham's like, no. I want this for me. I want this for me. So Abraham's like, okay, not a problem. And in verse 16, he pays him the 400 shekels of silver. So Abraham pays for the land. And in some ways, he may have wanted to do this because he wanted to secure it for himself, and he wanted to make sure this was absolutely, definitely his, no doubt about it. So that could be the main reason that he did this. All right. And then we look at verse 17 here. And it describes exactly where it is and where the borders were. It says, under Abraham for a possession in the presence of the children of Heth before all that went in at the gate of his city. So basically he pays for the land in front of witnesses. All right. So that's verses 16 through 18. He's not only paying for it, he's making sure there's witnesses around to witness this land transaction. Because Abraham's like, I get this, you're willing to give it to me, but if I actually pay you for it, that's even better. And so then we get to verse 19 and 20 here. And Abraham buries Sarah. Now, we've gone through this passage very quickly, and there's not as much to cover here. But the reason for that is because I wanted to talk to you guys about where this is and tell you something that if you are newer to the Bible and you are newer to studying the Bible and you are newer to understanding the land of Israel, etc., this is kind of exciting, interesting information. So most of the places that we've been talking about outside of Jerusalem, but even at the time, what we have for Jerusalem nowadays is nothing like what it was in Abraham's day. In Abraham's day, it was just a city. In fact, we don't think that anything that is in Jerusalem now was actually original to Abraham's time. We think it was more around the time of David, when David established it as the capital, and that's when the city started to build into grandeur. And then under Solomon, it built up and built up. So even though Jerusalem was sort of the capital, like kind of, sort of, it was not really established as the capital until the kings of Israel came about, which is Saul, David, Solomon, and carrying on from that. So back in Abraham's time, while Jerusalem was definitely a city, it was not what it is now. So let's take a look at this though, because you'll be able to see right here. And let's do this as camera number 1, so you can still see me as well. If you notice, Hebron right here is just outside Jerusalem from our map. And this is where he is. He was staying in Beersheba, right? He was in Beersheba, but now he's up here in Hebron, which is where Sarah has just died. And he's asked them, he says, look, I really need a place to bury. Beersheba and Hebron are about 40 miles apart. Hebron is about 40 miles outside of Jerusalem. You can see the word Jerusalem down here, but notice there's a line going right up to it. So you can see that Hebron and Jerusalem are really close to each other. But you want to know what the really exciting thing is? The really, truly exciting thing about this story is that Sarah's grave still exists, and we know where it is, and it's been archaeologically maintained. So the grave, Machpelah, or Machpelah, depending on who pronounces it, is actually in the city, in the modern city of Hebron. It's just outside the city. And there's a great big, in fact, let me see if I can do this. I don't know why I didn't do this earlier, but let me see if I can pull up Machpelah. Here we go. And depending on, well, let's see here. Let's see, open image in a new tab. And let's see if we can share this tab with you guys. Because this is actually somebody's specific photo that they took. So we're going to close that. We're going to add this. And let's see. Let's see if we can show you this. All right. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit on this so that you guys can see it a little bit better. Let me get the position. This right here is actually Machpelah. Now, this is not, I want to make it really clear, this is not what it looked like in the time of Abraham. All right? It was not this big at all. This was actually a palace that was built around it, ironically enough, by Herod in the early 1st century, or just before the 1st century. So Herod actually built this great big palace around it, but this is actually still in existence today. So if you want to see the burial place of Sarah and Abraham and Isaac and actually Jacob, all three of them, and Sarah as well, and Rebecca is there, and I believe Jacob's wives are there as well. So we'll talk about that later on. But it's called the Grave of the Patriarchs or something along that line. And depending on who you are and what guide you get, it is actually because Muslims also trace their lineage back to Abraham, and back through all the way back to Abraham as their father through Ishmael. You need to understand that this is a sacred site for both Jews, Christians, and Arabs, just like the Dome of the Rock is in Jerusalem. So this is a site. And so if you're Jewish, there is one entrance you can go in. And if you're Muslim, there's a different entrance. But it is a tourist attraction and you are allowed to enter and tour it. So it is something that you can go to even today. It's actually it's a religious destination. Tickets to get in it, let's see. So it closes at 9 p.m. their time. And it is actually free to go in, according to this. It's called Ibrahimi Mosque is another name for it. That's the ticket that you get, is you get it for the Ibrahimi Mosque, it's called the Cave of the Patriarchs in Hebron. And it's, so there's all sorts of, and if you just want to see it or you want to see the outside of it, I don't think there's interior pictures of it, but if you wanted to, because I think just because of what it is, it says, can you visit the Cave of the Patriarchs? It is open daily to all visitors. It does say that it should be done with a guide because it is in a politically vulnerable area and they can kind of look through it for you. They can be there with you and it's a little bit more safe if you do it that way, just because of the politics between Muslims and Jews, and especially right now. It's not really, it is in the West Bank. It's considered part of the West Bank. Even though Hebron is not technically Jerusalem in ancient times, by this point, Hebron has kind of like, think of it like a suburb of Jerusalem at this point. It's kind of like one of the suburban areas of Jerusalem. So it is considered part of the West Bank, which is, of course, occupied by Palestinians. Not a problem with that, as much as it is. Just be aware that that's what it is and that's where it is. And I'm not suggesting you book a trip this week. You might not even be able to go at this time with all of what's going on in the unrest. However, It is known to the Jews by its biblical name, Cave of Machpelah, and to Muslims as the Sanctuary of Abraham. And it's a series of caves that are 30 kilometers south of Jerusalem in the heart of the old city of Hebron in the West Bank. So I think one of the most fascinating things is that this right here, I believe, is the only site that we know of that has been preserved that dates all the way back to Abraham for sure. There are other places that we think could be pretty sure of, but nothing absolutely definite, like the Ibrahimi Mosque, or in this case, the Cave of the Patriarchs. So fascinating, awesome. And so one of the most interesting things about this passage is that it is so specific as to where she dies. It is where she is buried, where Abraham buries her, that we know exactly where it is, which is why they were able to and of course, then Herod builds this huge palace around it, which preserves it even more. And we're not even sure why. I watched one video about this, and the question was asked, well, why would Herod have done this? And the guide actually said to somebody, he goes, well, Herod's father converted to Judaism. So that kind of made Herod a Jew. And this is why this was, I think it was Caesar Augustus says about Herod that it is safer to be a pig in Herod's household than to be a son, because unfortunately Herod was known for murdering his sons. But if he was trying to follow Judaism or trying to follow Jewish customs, he would not have been sacrificing pigs. And so that would have been where that statement came from, that it was safer to be a pig in his household than his son, because practicing Judaism means he wouldn't have been touching pigs, but he was quite willing to murder sons, which is a horrible thing. But apparently, obviously, that is not like true Judaism. Even modern Judaism is not so far that you should murder your sons. And Herod was a pretty wicked man. I just think it's very interesting that God sometimes uses wicked men to preserve wonderful things that, and so God used Herod to preserve this site, which is Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob's burial site. And Sarah was actually the first one to be buried there. So that's pretty much all our passage is about today. It cost Abraham $5,000 in modern day times. And Herod eventually built this lavish palace around it. Go onto YouTube if you want to find some more videos about it. You'll find tons and tons about that site, because it is a historic site. And if you do go to Israel, it's free entrance. Go ahead. If you're going to plan a trip to Israel, you definitely should go and see this site, because I can't imagine going all that way and not going to see the one thing we do know dates all the way back to the patriarchs. So anyway, hopefully you have enjoyed this today. Hopefully we've taken the death of Sarah, which is a sad thing, but turned it into something that's kind of amazing, because we do still have this preserved for us today. So thanks for joining me. For those of you who normally turn in right at 8 o'clock, sorry about some of the glitches and all the craziness, but I think we've got it solved, and we should be good for the rest of the week. So I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. And we are going to focus a little bit more on Isaac starting tomorrow and his life. And so we'll see you tomorrow and get into that, because Isaac's now 37 years old and he's still not married. All right. But anyway, we will see you tomorrow. Thanks for joining me, and bye for now.
You can have all this world. Give me Jesus. When I am alone, oh, when I am alone, when I am alone, give me Jesus, give me Jesus, oh, give me Jesus.